So welcome. This video is going to take you through our new module, PyReports. Now, just to give you a little bit of background, we obviously are a dashboard, a data visualization tool, and we allow you to do things like filter, dice, slice, chop and change the data. So working with that data in real time, live access to data. And this isn't to take away any of that functionality, that's still great ways of doing things. However, what we've sort of found over the years is actually people do want to have visualizations that include data tables and extract those in more traditional ways, so take those items out to reports. So where we find people are still using Panintelligence for the dashboarding, but they may be using a more of a legacy application for something like reporting, so it might be something like Crystal Reports or Business Objects or Cognos to produce those delivered reports out to stakeholders. We can actually now do that through Panintelligence directly using the PyReport module. So the easiest way to go into this is up in the top ribbon. If you've got the PyReporting module enabled, you'll have a reporting button, and if I click that reporting button, it brings us into the reporting area. And this area is split into three distinct zones. So we've got the report creation, and this is where we're going to create the layout for the report. We've got the schedules, where we can actually see how we're scheduling that item out. And then finally there's a section here for monitoring, so we can see anything that's gone wrong with that scheduling process. So first of all, let's have a quick look at a report here. So this is one that I've created earlier, and essentially the report is split up into cells, and it's very similar to the main Panintelligence dashboard in that each one of these cells can then further be split. So if I select a cell here, using the same icons that I'd see in the main dashboard, I can start to split these cells up. And notice when I create a brand new cell, it asks me to do one or two things. So it's saying either insert text or chart. So the text could be an explanation on the page, so some information I want to put on the page. So it can be things like welcome to this report, or it might describe the data within the report. And what we can do with that text is we can actually start to format it as well. So I might decide to put a background on the text, or I might want to change the font size, so let's make that look nice and big. I might want to change the line height of the text, so make that sort of stand out a little bit more. I can do things like center it, I can change it to bold, and I can change things like the font family as well. So decide that actually I'm going to have that in, let's go into Fantasy. Not that it's a particularly great font, but it will show you exactly what it's able to do there. Now when I created that cell, it actually said this could be a chart or text. So the simplest item is putting text in there, but quite often what I actually want to do is to create a chart. And in this case, I do again exactly what I do in the main dashboard, and it's using this button over here, which is to select a chart from the chart library. So I'm going to click that button, and it will come, and I've now got access to all the charts that are available to me as a user. If I don't see a chart in here, then either I need to go and create it in a normal way, or ask the administrator to give me access to that bit of information. But here I'll just drop in my drill to Google search. I've got the item there. Now you notice I changed the format of this, so I've got a really big header title, so I'll change that back to something slightly more normal. By default it will use the actual name of the chart, but I can go and change that as well if I want to. So quick and easy ways of doing that. And then just as within the dashboard, I can start to add more cells to that page, or I can start to split chart cells up. Now, as I've gone through and created this chart here, I've added a few elements on here. And really importantly, I've also added some data tables, because data tables are a bit special in that they're not a fixed size. So a chart will take the space that it requires. A data table, what we don't want is scroll bars within the report. So actually the data table will scan over the page. So if I just save this report as is at the moment, and what I'll do is I'll click the generate PDF button. Okay, so it's generated that report for me. So I'm in Chrome here, so the download is down in the bottom left here, but depending on your browser it may be slightly different. But essentially I can come in and I can have a look at this report. So if I just zoom out, I'll see exactly what the report would look like on paper. So I can see my charts, I can see my description, so the text I've entered, and I can see the data tables. And crucially, I can see the data table on the last section here, which is rolling over multiple pages because it contains lots of data. So without having to do anything particular, I'm able to go and create a dashboard, a dashboard report which looks like this. So if I just close that and go back to the report itself, this is just an exact copy of what I have here. Now, if I want to add new pages, I just click the Add Page, and I can do that as many times as I want. Obviously, a page won't necessarily be a page as is in the report, because if it needs multiple pages to do something like a data table, then it will take up that space. But I can just add and remove pages very easily, and I can also change the order of pages just using the up and down arrows, so I can swap things in and out. Now, I showed you formatting over a single element within here, but you can also format globally for the report, and here's where I can decide whether I want it to be portrait or landscape, as well as putting padding and field sizes around things. I can format for the page, or I can format for an item if I select an item within there. So very quickly I can make the report look exactly as I want it to look, constantly able to, if I just save that page, either test it as a PDF, or I can test it in HTML output without checking the PDF as well. So really, if you can lay out a dashboard, you'll be able to pretty quickly come into here and start to lay out a Panintelligence report as well. Okay, so the next thing that you're going to want to do with a report is actually distribute that to people. And to do that, we go into the schedule section. And if I click on the schedule section, this is where I decide exactly how that distribution is going to take place. So what you do is you create a new schedule, and the way it works is a schedule can be used to schedule multiple items. So it could still schedule a single chart or a single data table, or it can schedule a report, or actually, as my schedule here, as you'll see in a second, it can schedule those multiple items to go out to the individuals. So if I move over to the actual page itself, so this is, I've got the schedule open, and this works in the same way as all of the tabs, so I can have multiple schedules open if I want to, but I'm going to keep it simple and work on the example report schedule. Down here I can start to decide off my users exactly who I'm going to schedule that to. So for example here I've got all of the users that I could send that to. Now this is really important, because if I select users in this way, then actually what it will do is it will run the report in their image, so they'll only get the content that they would have achieved if they'd come into the dashboard. So if they're restricted users, maybe they can only see a certain store or a branch, then actually that's exactly the same thing that will happen on the output. They'll only get that store or that branch in the output as well. Alternatively, and I advise a little caution here, you can send an unfiltered report to an email or to a group of emails, purely by putting the emails down in this section. In the center panel, this is just how that email will be constructed. So right now we're always sending an email from a scheduled item, and you can set the subject to the email. You can also set some body around the email, and then finally everything that you schedule down here is an attachment. So I've got a HR report. That's the report that we were creating over here. That HR report's scheduled, and the only option at the moment for a Pi report is to distribute that as a PDF. I've also picked a chart and a data table, and I get slightly different options depending on which one of those I've selected. So with the chart, I can actually put a watch on this, and I can do the same for the data table. And that's really useful, because what you can actually do is set up like an exception chart or an exception report and say only trigger the email if data exists. So I might create something over the support desk here, looking for any tickets that are greater than a day old, run that as often as I want to run it. So say I want to run it every 5 minutes, and hopefully most of the time it does not find any tickets that are older than a day. On the occasions where it does find a ticket that's older than a day, it will then trigger that email. So rather than telling me all the time what's going on, I can actually get it set up for exception. When I'm dealing with a chart or a data table, I can also attach a CSV output, And really importantly, with a data table, I can also trigger a call to a web service. And this is the if this then that trigger. So works best with the data retention here. And what I can actually do is, when an exception happens, actually set out and trigger to a web service call to make something happen. So for example, this could be stopping or starting a production line. It could be calling out to a web service which inserts some data into a particular table. You know, the world's your oyster when you hook this up to a web service. The final piece on the right hand side here is just the reoccurrence. So when do I want this schedule to run? So at the moment the schedule's set to run every minute, which is why I've got it suspended in the top corner. But I can choose how often in the minutes I want to run that, and actually between which hours. So I might not want to run it outside of working hours. I could do that daily, I can schedule it hourly, or I can schedule it monthly. The final piece down in the bottom here is just how long to keep sort of the trace for, how long to keep the history of the runs for. And that becomes important when we actually go to the monitoring. So as we're running these schedules, we can actually see exactly how these things have run, when they've started, when they've ended, so how long that's taken and what the error might be. And this is the one thing to watch out for. So if you're going to run lots and lots of PI reports and complicated PI reports through the scheduler, then obviously performance is something that we need to start to think about. Now, the scheduler itself is a separate component and can be separately load balanced to the main Panintelligence application. But if you find yourself getting to a point where you're scheduling lots and lots of documents, that may be where that becomes a concern. But for the most part, everything's really, really simple. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. If you want to know more, then just get in touch with us here at Panintelligence.